Hello everyone, welcome back to the Big Sew Along. I'm Ginny and this is where you will find me every Tuesday sewing a different garment for you. This week, let me just say that if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please hit subscribe. And if you enjoy this video, hit like. Now, with that out of the way, this week we are sewing Simplicity 9139, which is this caftan dress here. The description of this is a Mrs. V-neck caftan tunic and dress. Sorry, Mrs. Relaxed V-neck caftan tunic and dress with a self-tie belt. I did not make the self-tie belt, just so you know. Their fabrics they suggest are linen, double gauze, soft cottons, chambray, and silky types such as double georgette, rayon, crepes. Extra fabric is needed to match plaid, stripes, or one-way design. Okay, the only notions you need for this are, it says buttons. Did I miss a button? I don't think so. Maybe somebody needed a button for this. I didn't. Yeah, it says 2 5/8" buttons, but I mean, maybe one of the other views has buttons? Oh, it does, yes, sorry. View C, the shirt, has decorative buttons, but I don't think they're functional. Okay, so I did view B. Actually, I did a combination between view B and view A. A is the full caftan, which would have been really long for me. View B is the dress, which was, you can see in this photo here, it comes right to the top of her knee. On me, that came to about like a couple of inches below the knee. So I added 4 inches to that and came up with the caftan that I'm wearing today. This is one of those patterns where you have an extension, you have the dress pattern, and then there's another pattern piece that you tape to the bottom of it to make the full length. You'll see in the tutorial today, I just didn't do that. I just added 4 inches to the bottom of the dress version, because if I had added the full extension, I would have had to cut half of it off anyway. So, yeah. Okay, so let's see. Simplicity sizes. I can't remember if we've done Simplicity before, so I'm just going to run through the bust and hip measurements on this really fast. This is size double extra small to double extra large. And the bust measurements are 29.5 inches through to 48 inches. Hip measurements are, hip measurements are 31.5 inches to 50 inches. For view B, I made a size medium, which is, I almost always make a size 14 in major pattern companies. This is no exception. The medium in this is a 14/16, and that is what I made with no alterations except for the length that I just talked about. So my fabric was only 45 inches wide. This, by the way, is a cotton lawn. It's a patchwork cotton lawn. I love this fabric. I got it from my local fabric store. It is 45 inches wide, and according to this pattern, for 45-inch wide fabric in a size medium, I would need 3 3/8 yards. I did not have 3 3/8 yards for this. I had 3 yards, but I will say I did not have anything left over, really. I mean, I had scraps, obviously, but I didn't have length left over. I would not have had enough to make the longer version, but I did make the long sleeve originally, and I honestly just didn't like that length on me. It's a kind of a wider sleeve. I didn't like the way that looked, so I ended up making the shorter sleeve, which on this one comes to here, which it's just below the elbow, which is fine. It's not my favorite length, so I have been wearing it rolled up. This shirt does have a center pleat, and you can see I wasn't really paying that much attention to, I was thinking because it was patchwork it wouldn't matter, but my pleat ended up like sucking up one patch and not any of the other one on the other side. So at the end of the day, it looks a little awkward and I'm not really fond of that, but I didn't realize it until it was quite late in the game. And you know, once you've got that cut out, there's not much you can do. So I'm going to live with it. I think it's fine. It also has this little collar detail, which I really like. Now, the other version does not have a collar, it just has a face neckline. So, why don't we go over to the tutorial, I'll show you the whole thing, and then we will come back and talk some more. Just so you know, in the tutorial, I go over, most of it is actually the collar and the facing. I don't go through like a lot of like shoulder seams, side seams, and that kind of stuff because we've done that a million times and I don't feel like you guys need to see me do that again. So here's the tutorial and then we'll come back and talk some more. Before we get started on the actual sewing instructions, I just want to show you guys, this is the front body piece. And this is one of those patterns that has an extension, so if you're making the longer version, you'll have a separate piece that gets attached here where these dots are. So just be aware of that. Also, although it looks a little weird, can you see this front? There's like a little notch here, or a little triangle piece here. This does get cut on the fold. This line is the fold. So just be aware of that also. So I have stay stitched all of my necklines. Both of them. And this is what our front piece looks like when it's opened up. Let's see if I need to make this a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's opened up. This is center front. I'm going to start by folding this right sides together. There's a little mark right here. So we're going to sew from this little divot right here in our notch all the way down to this pin right here. This is just a marking pin to make sure we're in line. This is a straight line to here. Make sure you back tack. This is our pleat right here that we just sewed. And now we're going to open this up so it's more like a box pleat, I guess. I'm going to match this center fold line up with my stitching line on the front, just like that. Match up those two edges. Now I'm going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to baste this little pleat down. Then I'm going to press this open so it lays nice and flat. And then I am going to take this and sew my shoulder seams. I'm just going to put the front to the back, right sides together, and sew our shoulder seams. So this is where we are so far. We have our pleat done in the front, our stay stitching around our neck, our shoulders or seams are sewn, they are finished, and they are pressed towards the back. And now we're just going to put this whole piece aside for a few minutes, and we're going to go on to piece number 3, which is our neckband. You should have 2 of these, and one of them should be interfaced. So this is obviously my non-interfaced one. This is my interface piece. We're going to put these right sides together, and we're going to sew all the way around the top edge. Which is the shorter edge. And we're gonna sew this around here, from here to here, and all the way around here, and then back over here. We're only using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on the neckband. So this is what we look like now. And this is a pretty small seam allowance, so you really shouldn't have to trim it too much, but you do want to trim these corners down so they're not really bulky under there. And if you feel like it's too bulky, you can certainly you can trim that down. Now we're going to turn this right side out like this. We're going to press that so it's a really nice flat seam. Once you get that pressed, you're going to understitch that seam. So you're going to stitch that seam allowance to the facing. And then, once you've got that done, you're just going to baste this edge together. And again, don't do it wider than 3/8 of an inch because your seam allowance there is only 3/8 of an inch. All right, so now this is what our collar looks like. And this is our dress so far. Now we're going to attach our collar to our dress, and we should have a dot here and here. Mine are marked with pins, but you should be able to see yours. Now, when this is done, this collar is going to lay like this. It doesn't stand up. It lays flat against your body. So this side is the one that you want to show. You can see here, this is my understitching, so that's the wrong side. I want it to look like that when it's finished without the understitching showing. So just make sure you have the right side. Well, it's easy because you're going to put right sides together. So the right side of my collar, I'm going to put it to the right side of my dress. And we're going to start right here at this notch. Or this dot. We're going to stop at this dot. And we're going to just check to make sure our center back seams are matching. And then just go ahead and finish pinning it in. Now, once again, we've done this before. We're putting a straight line into a curved line, so you may need to put some clips in your dress edge. You'll see you have a little dot here too on your collar, and that should match up with your shoulder seam. I've got a little extra room in my shirt here as opposed to my collar, but you can see I'm just gonna stretch that collar a little bit to ease that in, and it fits in pretty nicely. All right, so now we're just gonna go sew that seam, sew this together from here all the way around to here, and remember we're using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. The next thing we're gonna do is sew our facings together. So we should have piece 4 and piece 5, and they should both be interfaced. We're just going to sew them right sides together, and then you're going to finish the outside edge any way you like, this edge here. So here's our collar so far, and it will, like I said, it will lay like this when we're finished. But right now we're going to leave it like this. We're going to put our facing on. So we're sandwiching our collar between our facing, and we're just going to match up all of our points. It's our shoulder. And again, if you're having trouble fitting that in, you can clip your seam allowance a little bit if you need to. Just don't go past your basting stitches. All right, so once we get that pinned in, we're just going to sew that seam again with our 3/8 inch seam allowance. I know you're getting tired of hearing that. I just don't want you to forget. Then you're going to understitch this seam to the facing and fold it to the inside. I am going to top stitch mine down around the outer edge, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Whenever I put a facing on like this, on a V-neck especially, I do like to make a mark at the seam allowance right at the center point. That way I'm sure I get a really clean and perfect V when I flip it over to the right side. Sometimes because you're sewing a little bit blind when you get down here, it's just easier if I have like a little chalk mark or just a pin or something right where I want my point to be. Now on this one, we didn't do this with the collar, but with the facing, I am gonna clip my curves, and I'm definitely going to clip into my V here, and you're going to want to go pretty close into the V. Just be sure you don't cut into your stitching, which is something I do on a pretty frequent basis. Then to make it turn nicely, I like to clip this off like that, so you have a little bit less bulk right there in the middle. And the same thing on this side. And then you can go ahead and trim and clip the rest of your collar before you turn it to the right side. Don't forget to understitch it. So that's our collar done, and I'm pretty impressed. I think it looks pretty good. I like the way that they have that so that this lays flat. You can see I did do top stitching around the edge of my facing here. Like I said, you don't have to do that. But I also did a stitch in the ditch here between my collar and my bodice. And I don't know that you have to do that if you're stitching this down. But for sure you're going to want to do that if you're not stitching your facing down, just to keep all that stuff to laying towards the inside. Like I said, I did that and I did the top stitching, so that might be overkill. So this is our little patch piece. This is our pattern piece. This is obviously the fabric, and this is the interfacing. And this is how I do a smallish like applique like this to get a nice clean edge around the edge. I'm gonna put this so the smooth side, the non sticky side. Sorry, the sticky side is up. The wrong side, the side that isn't sticky, is going face down on top onto the right side of my fabric. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way around this, all 4 edges, at 3/8 of an inch. So this is what our little applique looks like right now. I'm just going to trim these edges, and then I'm going to cut off the tips of those corners so we can get those to lay a little more pointy. Now, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut a hole just in the interfacing. And I'm actually just going to, you just have to be careful so you pull them apart so you don't cut your fabric. I'm just going to make a little snip in there for now. And then I'm going to stick my scissors in there and cut pretty much all the way across, diagonally. So I have plenty of room to turn this around. Now I'm just going to turn this around to the right side. And very carefully use my point turner. So it'll look like this. Now I'm just going to take it to the iron and give it a good press. And that will fuse my interfacing to the back of my patch and give it nice finished edges, I hope. We'll see in a minute. Alright, so that's what our little patch looks like now. I think I cut a little too close to my corners when I cut that fusible off, but I think it's okay. So now what we're going to do is place this right in the center, and you want the middle of your patch to line up right there, and it should butt right up against the edge of your V. And we're going to sew this on with an edge stitch all the way around the edge. And then you're going to cross stitch one this way and one this way. You can see that right here on this pattern. So you're going to go all the way around the edges, and then you're going to sew from one corner to the other and the other corner to the other corner. And then that is going to be finished. And our next step is going to be to put in our sleeves and our pockets. Our sleeves are just flat set sleeves. They're not set in. You're going to match up your corners. Oh, sorry, your center. You should have a dot at the center front, so you match it up with your shoulder seam. And then you'll have some notches on this side to match. Match your underarm seam. And again, you're going to see that the sleeve is going to, little edge of the sleeve is going to point out on the sides. That's fine, because once you sew it, it's going to match up with the side of your shirt. All right, so put as many pins in here as you need. Sew that seam and then finish it and press that seam towards the shirt, or sorry, towards the sleeve. Do the same thing on the other side. Once we have our sleeves in, we're going to move on to our pockets. And we're going to do the same way we've done all inseam pockets before. We're going to lay our fabric out right side up. You can see that I have already finished I finished the side edges on my caftan on both sides. And I've also finished all the edges on my pocket pieces. So I'm going to take a pocket piece and I'm going to lay it right side down. I'm going to find, on this caftan, you should have a notch right up here by your bust. And then on the wrong side, you should see you have a couple of dots. One's here and one is here. And that's where you want to match up your pocket dots. There. So the dots on the back of your pocket are going to match right up with that. And just like our regular side seam pockets, we're just going to sew that down with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. We're going to do that 4 times, 2 on the front, 2 on the back. Then we're going to press this outside like this. We're going to place our caftan right sides together, front and back, and we're going to stitch from the underarm down, pivot around our pocket, pivot again, and you're going to want to stop right here. There should be a dot somewhere down here south of your pocket. That's for our walking vent, so only stitch to there, back tack, and then we'll do our hems. Now, to deal with this hem, and I think we did this in another project, I can't remember which one now, but you can see here I have folded up my hem. I'm using a 2-inch hem, but you can use whatever you want. I folded that up 2 inches. Also, on my hem here, I folded the raw edge under 1/4 of an inch, and then I folded it up my 2 inches. Now you can just serge off this edge. When you have a vent like this, or when you have an uneven hem, this hemline shows sometimes, and I personally don't like the way the serging looks. I'd rather have a clean finished hem. That's why I do that, but you certainly can just serge that end if you prefer. Okay, so now, let's get back to how we're gonna do this vent. This is the serge side of our split, and our hem is pressed under 2 inches. We're gonna fold this out to the right side, right on the hemline here, and we're gonna sew it right here along this edge, just across the hem at our 5/8 inch seam allowance. And then you're just gonna clip that corner, and then we're gonna press that to the back. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. So this is what that hem looks like once we've clipped that corner and pressed it open. And now we're just going to flip this over to the wrong side of our caftan. And when we do that, that is going to flip this side under. So it'll be nice and finished like that on the side. And then you can I would just press this down, your 5/8 inch seam allowance, and do the same thing on this side, and then stitch this down right along this edge, and then you can just pivot and go all the way around your hem and back up the other side. I hope that makes sense. And then just hem your sleeves any way you like. Okay, so there you go. My take on this pattern is, it says it's an easy to sew pattern. I agree with that. It's very easy to sew. The most difficult thing is the collar and maybe sewing your little patch down. That would be it. It's pretty easy. I will say, if you haven't ever sewn a garment with a collar or band, this is a really easy way to start. So I highly recommend it for that. Now, I added 4 inches of length to the bottom of view B, which is the dress version. And I thought that would be fine. What I wasn't thinking about is the bodice length. I really should have shortened it above the waist about 1 inch and then lengthened it. Because I didn't do that, my pockets are a little low. If you were shorter, I'm going to say if you're under 5'5", you probably want to make that adjustment, because the pockets are a little, like, they're a little bit awkward where they are right now. The other thing is, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in this picture, so I'm not even going to show you, but on the longer caftan version, it looks like the slits go up to like above the knee, and I didn't account for that either. So I might actually extend these slits a little bit, because I think I would prefer it that way. But if I don't do it on this one, I would definitely do that on this if I made it again. Okay, I think that is all I have to say here. I think I said it in the tutorial, but do note that that the front of this garment is cut on the fold, even though it's an awkward front, so you might not think so when you first look at it. I think I said that in the tutorial though. The other thing is, just so you know, like I said, this one is a size medium, which is for a bust 36 to 38. The final measurement on the bust of this one is 43 inches. So it's got a fair amount of ease in it, just so you know. Although I like the way the shoulders and everything fit. I like the way the whole thing fits. I just want you guys to know that there's a little bit of just some ease in there. Okay, so a couple of housekeeping kinds of things. First of all, next week our video is going to be, we're going to be doing Vogue 1665, which is a Tom and Linda Platt design. We're not making the pants or the skirt. We're just doing this asymmetrical top. And you know what? I'm going to try to get a better picture of the line drawing for you and put it up there. I will not be here for a Friday Sews this week, this coming Friday. Then I'll be back next, because I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to Chicago to go look for my shoes for that dress. My dress I'm wearing to the wedding. So then next Tuesday we'll be doing this. However, because I'm out of town for the weekend, I'm going to try really hard to get my video up and ready for Tuesday, but just be aware it might not be up until Wednesday. Then we have the next two patterns we're doing after that are Simplicity 9044, which is a shirt dress, the Sewing Workshop Coco blouse. This is the wonton, but the current version is the Coco blouse, and I will link to that down below. So what I'm adding to the queue this week for the following week is this Sandra Bezzina for Vogue pattern. It is Vogue 1496. It's another sort of caftan kind of thing, although this one, it's more like a dress or tunic. It has a really cool cocoon shape, and I'm going to show you a line drawing up here too of the back, because I think it has really cool style lines on the back. And I'm really excited to make this one. I've wanted to make it for a while. I don't know if you guys remember me telling you I ordered a bunch of patterns from Vogue a while back. Not the last time they had the sale, but the time before that when they had a sale. And they've never shown up. This was one of them. So I ended up getting this like at Joann's instead. I just got a second copy. Anyways, I'm really excited to sew that. I was really bummed that it never showed up. Who knows, maybe it'll show up in the fall or something. Anyway, I think that is it. Check below for our sewing queue. I'll have all the patterns coming up listed in the sewing queue, and I will also have them all listed over on the Big Sew Along Facebook page, and I will link to that below as well. So until next Tuesday or maybe Wednesday, happy sewing, have a really great week, and I will speak with you all soon. Bye.